This has been an ongoing story that I don't think we've covered yet. There has been legislation making its way through the parliament in Australia that would force digital platforms like Facebook and Google to pay media companies for said content, especially when they feature snippets of the content. Facebook has threatened to prevent Australians from posting news to the newsfeed if this law goes through. And as for Google, quoting The Guardian, on Friday, Google delivered an ultimatum to the government saying it would not be viable to continue offering search in Australia if the code goes ahead. The company's Australian managing director, Mel Silva, told a Senate committee the proposed news code was untenable and would set a dangerous precedent for paying for links. The principle of unrestricted linking between websites is fundamental to search, and coupled with the unmanageable financial and operational risk if this version of the code were to become law, it would give us no real choice but to stop making Google search available in Australia, she said. Withdrawing our services from Australia is the last thing that Google want to have happen, especially when there is another way forward, end quote. Silva said the company wanted to make changes to the code to make it workable, and the company was keen to enter into agreements with media companies to pay for content, pointing out around 450 deals have been made with media companies around the world. The Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, said at a press conference in Brisbane that the government would not respond to threats. Quote, "Let me be clear. Australia makes our rules for things you can do in Australia. That's done in our parliament. It's done by our government. And that's how things work here in Australia. And people who want to work with that in Australia, you're very welcome. But we don't respond to threats," end quote. Apparently, news articles only make up under 5% of what Australians share on Facebook. So frankly, given the garbage that most people share on Facebook, might that be a good thing for all involved? If Facebook stopped people from sharing news on the newsfeed, less misinformation spread, or maybe more, I don't know. But I'm not sure I understand why Google would have to shut down search if this law were passed. Like, wouldn't this only affect Google News? As quoted, Google has been going around the world cutting deals with publishers to pay for news in Google News. So maybe it would be worth it for both sides to collectively call each other's bluff here. It would be maybe worth it for them and worth it for all of us, because we could run a real-time experiment on a number of angles. We would learn, is Google displaying snippets of news articles more valuable to publishers than it is for Google? Would the publishers beg Google to come back? Or we could maybe see if, when forced, users would find search engines as interchangeable. Would we be able to prove that Google's moat is a monopolistic one if, say, everyone in Australia switched to Bing and it was fine? Or could even this be an entrepreneurial godsend for homegrown search to rise up in Australia? I don't think I have an opinion on either side here because I'm not sure who's right in this argument, but that's what I'm saying. Let's go ahead and find out. Take the leap, guys. Because maybe this would be a perfect control study to see who's right, to what degree, and in what specific ways.